Over the Romney record and Bain Capital, let's go to Alexis McGill Johnson, Democratic strategist and executive director of the American Values Institute. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Mitt Romney trying desperately to crawl out from this assault against him on outsourcing when he was at Bain. Can he do it? I know you're on the Democratic side of the aisle, but is it possible for him to reframe the issue now?
You know, I think what's interesting about Mitt Romney is that he came through a very bruising primary, still very much undefined. And I think the reason why the Bain ads are taking hold is because there are all these other issues that are coming out, right? We've got a person who has got $30 million in offshore accounts. We've got somebody who's completely out of touch and wealthy beyond means. And I don't think people begrudge his success per se, but they definitely are beginning to begrudge how he gained it. And so I think it's going to be really hard for him to come out of it.
I think that's exactly right. I think each individual attack on him through the primary season and even recently would not have been sufficient to define him in a terribly negative light. But it's death by a thousand cuts.
Yes.
There is no affirmative argument he's made explaining either what he believes, what his economic policy is, giving us the sense that he has the values, the stature, the wherewithal, or the fortitude to be president. Instead, it is a constant dancing and avoidance. And I think I don't see how he begins to push back against that because time is getting short.
Well, I think even more than that, he's put this forward as his central reason for being president, right? And I think that these 1,000 cuts are undermining that central argument. And so for most incumbents, you know, it's going to be a referendum on the president. It's going to be a referendum on where is the unemployment number, what's happening with jobs, and so forth. But I think, you know, the other argument people are trying to factor in is, you know, can this other guy actually do something for the economy? And it doesn't seem that he can translate these policies.
I think that's exactly right. And I rarely look to poll numbers this early, especially when you're dealing with subsets and crosstabs and all this sort of technical jargon that pollsters use. But that 14% swing that we referred to at the top of the show, in terms of who do you think will better deal with the economy, that seems to me to be critically important. Because as you pointed out, the only argument Mitt Romney had was, hey, I understand business, the economy, and jobs. The public is turning away from him on that and buying into the notion that all he did was make some highly leveraged offshore investments. That's not the way we want the economy to be run.
Absolutely. Nor do we want you to actually, you know, outsource our jobs.
Right.
You know, just to go back to what Congressman Slaughter's doing. I mean, when you look at those numbers in Colorado, in Virginia, in Pennsylvania, and Florida, we're seeing huge swings in states that are going to be very important for us. So, I mean, I believe the attacks are fair. I think, you know, we're following a blueprint that Newt Gingrich and Sheldon Adelson put together, so we know it works.
Right.
And I think it's real. I think that this is going to be the deciding factor.
Look, it seems to me that the White House has done, I don't know whether they view it this way or this happens to be fortuitous in terms of where the policies have been rolled out, but over the past month or so, they've had two separate prongs. One has been the affirmative argument to the base, where they've talked about immigration, same-sex marriage, and health care, the win from the White House, not something they could ordain, of course, but those three have solidified the primary sort of domestic policy arguments for the base. And there's a new energy. There's a new sense among those who are somewhat lax or maybe put off by a lack of leadership in the White House. Now people are saying, hey, you know what, they're getting it right. And then on the other side of the ledger, they're going right at the only argument Mitt Romney could make, which is the economy, saying, hey, we can take you on your own turf. And it seems to be working. I
think it is working. I think the one other thing that I think the administration's doing very well is they're focusing on the gender gap, and they're really expanding it. So there's something like a 30-point gender gap. And, you know, messages about defunding Planned Parenthood, like this, you know, contraception, all those reproductive rights questions are really energizing women among the base, which will be the most consistent folks that will turn out.
Right. You know, it seems as though on issues, and, you know, the issue of choice continues to be one where the nation is pretty well evenly divided. I had been wrong, I thought, a couple years ago that as time went by, that issue would swing clearly in favor of the pro-choice argument. Hasn't happened as much. Certainly on the issue of same-sex issues, it has. Yeah. And so, in a way, Mitt Romney's being cabined as sort of the party of old grumpy men, right? I mean, right? I mean,
but he looks the part. I mean, he's, well, you know, he's like this Mad Men guy.
he looks more Mad Men. John McCain more old grumpy man. You know, and I say that with hesitancy. John McCain was, I always felt, he was a genuine war hero, and so, you know, Mitt Romney not so much. I mean, he went off to Paris or France during when he could have been in the services. So that's a different thing. But you're right. If he's Mad Men, John McCain is old grumpy men. But either way, that's not 50% plus one.
No, it isn't at all. I mean, and I just go back to 2008. I think what was interesting about Barack Obama is that he was also kind of an open vessel. People projected a lot of things onto him, some of which we, you know, even on the left kind of fell a little gypped by. But Mitt Romney is this open vessel that, you know, we're projecting a lot of of nastiness into, and and a very retro feeling. Like he's not moving us forward, and I think that's really key.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. I think Mad Men may actually be, and he may be looked at and said, as a popular TV show, maybe I can be re-elected on that, but that imagery is all wrong, given the realities of the American electorate right now. Certainly when it comes to minority issues, obviously the NAACP convention was, either a brilliant stroke where he's going to appeal, as many people have been saying, to sort of the white vote that will look at the African American and say, we're tired of this or not. But anyway, we're going to have to continue this next week. Time runs short. Alexis McGill Johnson, Democratic strategist and executive director of the American Values Institute. Many thanks for sharing your thoughts. The president looked back.